Everybody, welcome back. Man, it's a good time of the year. You got football on multiple days of the week. You got fantasy football drafts going on. Fall's just a good time. And we got a pretty decent Thursday slate of games here lined up. We're gonna get things kicked off with, I believe, some fireworks going on in Tampa, Florida. You got Boise State playing USF at USF and Raymond James Stadium. And look, this is gonna be a high scoring game, and I see the potential for an upset here. However, I'm still going to kind of lean Boise State 5.5. I kind of like, again, I think some fireworks. So I'm seeing an over 62.5. Pretty plausible. My favorite pick here probably though is that first quarter over 13.5. I definitely feel like we're going to see both offenses go down the field, put up some points. And here's some reasons behind why. Like, look, Boise State is bringing back Madsen last year. He was Mountain West Offensive Player of the Year candidate. They have one of the best O lines, if not the best O line in Group 5 play. They got four starters returning from last season. You got a NFL caliber tight end back. He had 7 touchdowns last year. You got some wide receivers getting healthy here in Caples. Yeah, you lose Ashton Gency, and obviously that's a big loss. Behind that O line, I believe you got Gaines and Sherrod should be rotating carries, and they should still be able to produce behind that offensive line, honestly. They're loaded up front on the defensive end, on the defensive seven, honestly. You bring back Jaden Virgin Morgan. He had 10 sacks last season. Braxton Feely is back. He had 5.5 sacks. Their secondary is returning four starters, and that could be good. That could be bad, as this was probably not one of, but they were at least 100 in pass defense last season, right? So I guess you're kind of hoping with the return, you get some continuity back there. You should see a step forward, honestly. Let's see, you got Ty Benefield and Zion Washington back there. But in my opinion, this defense is more geared towards stopping the run. And that's not what you want against a USF team who is very up tempo. You bring back Brian Brown. He's Look, he missed some last season due to an injury. When he was healthy in 2003, though, he accounted for over 4,000 yards on this offense, right? He's bringing back some weapons at wide receiver. He's got Jaden Alexis, Keyshawn Singleton coming back. Chris Nimrod in Tennessee transfers in. And they added some depth at that running back. They bring in Cartavius Norton, who did pretty well at Charlotte. This O line is experienced, it's deep, and that's going to help. It's going to help push their tempo. Look, you don't want to give Brown some time to sit back there and pick you apart, especially when Boise's pass defense is already kind of iffy. And I feel like he is going to be the best playmaker on this field. I expect points on both sides of the ball. I'm seeing Boise State maybe ekes this out 41-34, but I wouldn't be surprised if USF actually wins this game. Put Boise State on upset watch alert. Next game at the 6:30 kickoff, yeah, Ohio versus Rutgers, right? Um, Ohio was gutted last year. Like they were good, but this roster is a shell of what they were. They lost most of their O line. Their entire defense is gone except by two experienced defensive backs they do bring back. They got Navarro at quarterback. He's a dual threat quarterback, probably I think he was he actually no, take that back. They bring back running back who was the 2022 MAC Freshman of the Year. He returns after Minnesota stint, right? They got a new coaching staff, but it does keep continuity though, since the head coach was their offensive coordinator last year. This is a team that's going to like to run the ball, and I just see that kind of hard against the Rutgers defensive line because they're very like they're. This is a Big Ten. They got Big Ten athletes, right? And they're bringing back some stability at quarterback. They got let me see my notes here. What are my notes saying? Like this is probably one of the best wide receiver classes they've had in a long time. And they retooled on the defensive line with some pretty good pieces. Their linebackers are thin, but their secondary is very experienced. And I feel like with that, Ohio's rebuilt offensive line are probably going to struggle moving the ball. It's one of those games where I was kind of going, when it came to the spread because 15.5. I feel like that might be a little right on the money. I do see Rutgers actually pulling this out by like 17 points, but my favorite here, honestly, is going to be unders across the board. I see value in under 47.5, lean on the under 49.5. I don't see this being a 50-point game at all. And I think Rutgers is going to be able to control the tempo. They're going to overwhelm Ohio's offensive line. They're going to dictate running the ball. They're going to get some explosive plays here and there with that wide receiver group, but this is going to go. This just screams under. You know. Next up is ECU versus NC State, and we got another upset watch here right here for NC State. Look, ECU beat them last year. They got a new head coach who was at interim last year with Blake Harrell, ECU. He went 5-1 after he took over. Kate Hauser is back. Yes, he had 18 touchdowns and 11 interceptions. Little rocky, but they beat NC State at the end of the year in the Military Bowl, 26-21, I believe. And CJ Bailey looked great that game, honestly. He really did. And it was NC State's defense that kind of let them down. And I believe that's kind of going to be more of the same here. They hope to see some improvement, but this defense has a lot to do on NC State side of the ball, right? Their linebacker group is definitely the strength. Their line's decent, but the secondary is where I feel like they're going to get lit up. It's going to be another firework game. And I feel like ECU has the pieces, has the continuity. They're returning both starting running backs last year. The O line is experienced. But they're only returning three starters on defense, but they hit the portal hard. They bring in Auburn's assistant as their defensive coordinator now. They got some SEC grit right there. And I'm seeing some value, honestly, in ECU covering 14. I definitely see 10.5 as plausible. I see this maybe being a touchdown, 3-point game. Whoever has the ball last might win. This is definitely going to be some fireworks. I see the over. Both teams should hit 30 pretty comfortably. Like these defenses got some work to do. And I'm a lean NC State 37-30, but honestly, this is another game where I look for ECU on the upset. Honestly, it's very plausible. All right, for the 7 o'clock games we're going into, we got Wyoming versus Akron. And Wyoming went 3-9. They need to bounce back, right? Kind of an underwhelming season. They do bring back their quarterback. He showed flashes late last year. He's got their running back, their tight end is back. They had two guards returning. They had a center, so their O line should be actually pretty decent. They do get Damaja Harris from North Texas comes in, so the offense should be a little bit better than their, what was it, 20 points a game last year, I believe they scored. The offense not really the issue. It's the defense. The defense is going to be extremely leaky, in my opinion. They only have three returners coming. It's all on the line. So maybe see some front seven be pretty decent, but that secondary is going to get shredded. Last year, they gave up 30 points per game, close to 200 yards per game rushing last season, and it's kind of not where you want to be going into. You're already traveling to Akron, and Akron, they're no slouch offensively. They're bringing back Ben Finley. He had 26,000 yards, 2,600 yards, 16 touchdowns last season. He's experienced. Honestly, I got him probably as one of the best passers in the MAC. He should gear towards 3,000 yards this season. The wide receivers and running backs are unproven, and that's probably where he might not hit the 3,000. But the scheme helps, and defensively, the linebackers are great. I see this as the linebackers being extremely strong. The secondary also could be a strength. The D line is kind of where Akron is lacking, and both defenses, kind of have a holes. And I could really see this being another shootout. Over 47.5 is a solid pick. Akron plus 5.5 is also a slight lean. I see this. Look, this is either going to be a touchdown or a field goal game, in my opinion. Right? I see Akron losing this one 31-27. But because I got them, putting up 27 points, I see the value in Akron team total over 20.5 right now. I believe it's plus money. So I would actually be all over that with this Wyoming defense and being how leaky it was and Ben Finley back there tossing the rock, right? All right, for our other 7 o'clock game is UCF and Jacksonville State. And Jacksonville State, oh my God, were they monsters at running the ball last season. However, that might not be the case this year. Look, that O line gone, right? It's extremely inexperienced offensive line this year. They're in a little bit of a transition with Charles Kelly. He's more defensive minded, I believe. And you also got a new offensive coordinator in Clint Trickett. They lose that star running back who was shredding defenses last year. You bring in Gavin Wimsatt from Kentucky. He's a run first kind of quarterback, right? And again, behind that O line, that's my question mark for Jacksonville State here. And UCF went 4-8 last year, but they bring back Scott Frost back, right? You know what happened last time he played? They won the NCAA, at least in their minds. They bring in quarterback Cam Fencher. He threw for 5,000 yards over his career so far, and he's also rushed for like 1,000 yards. So he kind of fits that up tempo attack, right? He's a dual threat style quarterback. Their O line's pretty young, but I feel like they got talent right there. RJ Harvey is gone, and that's the big thing for UCF. But there's depth right there. I believe that there's depth at that running back position. They bring in 15 new offensive transfers. So it might take time to gel, but defensively, UCF will be strong on the D line. They got both defensive ends back after combining for 11 sacks last season. They bring in 16 defensive transfers, but best of the bunch, honestly, I believe is that safety Philip Dunham that they bring in. So that kind of helps a secondary that's kind of been depleted a little bit, but I expect them to be honestly pretty solid, maybe a little bit leaky. And Jacksonville State, I'm still I see them to put up some points too, right? So I'm gonna lean kind of over towards the over 52.5 because the only question mark I have about them is their offensive line. If that shows up, this could be actually a pretty good game, but I'm gonna lean the value in UCF to at least be up by 2 touchdowns at halftime. I feel like that's pretty doable behind, like I said, an inexperienced Jacksonville State offensive line when UCF is going to be pretty strong on their D line. So it's about strengths versus weaknesses. I'm gonna lean though with Jacksonville State actually keeping this a game plus 20.5. I feel like it's a little too big of a spread right here for teams kind of facing a lot of new faces, Seeing some miscues probably going to happen. I feel like Jacksonville State's definitely going to cover at least 24.5. As I see this final being UCF 34, Jacksonville State 20. And for our next game, we're going to go into the 8 o'clock game. Got Minnesota versus Buffalo. Minnesota is going to roll out a redshirt freshman quarterback, Drake Lindsey. Look, he's unproven. Darius Taylor's also back after 986 yards and 10 touchdowns. They bring in Javon Tracy from Ohio, and Logan Loyal comes in to play the slot from UCLA. I like their pickups, honestly. I like the people coming in, like the continuity they keep. Their O-line lost 3 starters, but honestly, they reloaded in the portal. So I'm not too worried about that. The defense is going to be one of the best in the Big Ten. You got safety Corey Parrish back. Deanne Anthony Smith is back. He's headlining this unit. They only allowed 18 points last season. Maybe some aggression might see a step back, but honestly, not much. In my opinion, this is still going to be solid defensively team, and that's why I'm going to lean on her 44.5 points off the rip. I see this kind of being a 27-17 kind of game. It might be a little bit closer than some people expect, only because Minnesota's pretty like you got a redshirt freshman quarterback going out there. They're going to be run heavy, in my opinion. They're going to try to control the tempo, and with that defense, they're going to suffocate Buffalo. And once they hit 20 points, I see them trying to get this game kind of over with. But Buffalo does have a veteran O line led by Trevor Peck, right? They got All MAC wide receiver Victor Snow back. Taquan Robertson, a UConn transfer, comes in. He's a mobile quarterback, and I kind of like that pickup. He kind of fits what Buffalo likes to do. Defensively, they get Khalil Murdoch is back at linebacker. Deion Crawford returns at DN. This edge rushing is going to be solid. The defensive line is also going to be solid. Their secondary was torched down the last season, down the stretch of last season, though, right? So I'm seeing this kind of more of a defensive battle. And with that being in mind, 17 and a half, I feel like in a defensive minded kind of game is going to be too large of a spread. So give me Buffalo plus 17 and a half. I see value in the first quarter going under 9.5. Maybe one touchdown gets there, a field goal. I see more likely 7-0 at the end of the first quarter due to tempos and defense being played here. And those are going to be my leans. I feel like safe pick is definitely Buffalo 21 and a half, right? They're under's only 44 and a half. Like all Buffalo really has to do is get just two two scores. Even 10 probably covers the 21 and a half, honestly. Oh, next game we're gonna go into, let's see what we got. We got Miami, Ohio at Wisconsin for the 9 o'clock game. Wisconsin has a new quarterback. They're bringing in Billy Edwards. He transferred in over from Maryland. He had 2,800 yards last season. I I kind of like him, honestly. He's an intriguing bring in for Wisconsin right here. Who's kind of been underwhelming a little bit, I guess, on the offensive side of the ball over the past. You got freshman running back Dylan Jones is going to be taking over as the feature back. Their offensive line is proven. Their offensive line is nothing but vets, right? They're bringing back basically that whole offensive line from last season. You got Vinny Anthony's returning. You got Ohio State transfer Jaden Billard also joins. And it's always good when you get players from Ohio State. Defensively, they're bringing back Ricardo Hallman at cornerback. Preston Zachman's also back at safety. They added a defensive line from LSU, JVR Suggs. Again, it's always great when you get transfers coming in from other Power Four schools, especially from the SEC. This front seven is deep. The secondary could also be elite, in my opinion. The offense should take a step forward. And that's why I'm going to slightly lean towards the over 39 and a half right here because I feel like that's just too low of a total of Wisconsin offense that should take a step forward. And I expect Miami of Ohio to be able to put up some points as well as the return in Daquan Finn. He's one of the max best too, right? Their O-line is extremely inexperienced though, and that's my cause of concern right here going against a pretty deep front seven on the Wisconsin side of the ball. Wisconsin side of the ball. Jeez, I cannot talk. And I think that's kind of where things are gonna kind of sway, right? I do see total though. I do see value in Miami getting team total over 10 and a half. I believe that's plus money right now. And that's just me solely believing in Daquan Finn. You know, he's strong enough to actually push this on 13 points. We're not asking much here, right? We're not asking too much. I'm gonna lean Miami of Ohio, honestly, plus 17 and a half. Mainly because I do believe in their defense here some. They got four starters returning in the secondary. That should cause some problems here for a Wisconsin team that's not really known to throw the ball, and you kind of got a inexperienced quarterback here in Billy Edwards, even though I do like what he did last season and calling him inexperienced might be a little bit crazy, but this is Big Ten now, and yes, you're going against a MAC team, but Miami, Ohio really are not slouches. I do feel Wisconsin takes this by at least two touchdowns though, so I see that 14 over what minus 13 and a half covering. It's a safe bet. But again, I'm gonna lean the over 39 and a half here. I'm gonna lean Miami of Ohio plus 17 and a half. I do see Wisconsin winning this game 27-13. Kind of the same with Minnesota thought process here. I feel like once Wisconsin gets to like the 20 areas, they're going to try to control tempo. They're going to hammer it out on the ground, and they're just going to get out of here with the dub. And now for our last game, this is going to be a good one right here, in my opinion. You got Nebraska and Cincy. I see the spread. What is 16, 6.5? It could go either way. This is a coin flip game. I believe A lot of people are feeling like this is going to be decided by a field goal. I believe a touchdown is actually exactly where this is going to be settled. Whoever has the ball first, ball last is going to win this game. In my opinion, it's going to be close at halftime. It's going to be a close final. And I'm going to lean, like I said, since I'm leaning by someone getting a touchdown, give me Nebraska 6.5. Mainly because this is year two for Dylan Raiola, right? He balled as a true freshman. Oh, I wouldn't say balled, but at least by true freshman standards in the Big Ten, he balled. Right now, they got a new offensive coordinator. I'm expecting a more of an aggressive passing attack out of him. They added some wide receiver pieces here at Dane Key from Kentucky. They bring in Hunter Freakow, and then Johnson's back at running back, and Nelson's also going to be pushing for carries. Like I'm liking this Nebraska team. A lot of people are big on them this season, and look, if you want to fulfill those expectations, this is a must-win game for Nebraska because after this game, you kind of go into some slouch competition, and they're home, I believe, for at least all the way up until damn near the end of October. So, you get this win, you're looking at a 6-0 start possibly, and that's kind of where you want to be. If you want to fulfill those expectations coming out, right? And yes, nine starters are gone defensively, but they bring in linebacker Marquise Watson Trent, who is a Sun Belt Defensive Player of the Year, and I feel like this man is going to be elite, elite. So I'm expecting the defense on the rushing attack to still be pretty solid. The line is the line is young defensively, but they're talented. They got what it takes. They're Big Ten athletes. But Cincy is no slouch either. They got Brandon Sorsby back at quarterback. He had 18 touchdowns and just 7 interceptions last year. In my opinion, he's the better quarterback here, unless if Raiola can take that step forward, which a lot of people are expecting him to. I see Sorsby as kind of getting the edge here. He could also run. He's got 9 rushing touchdowns in the ground. For a quarterback, that's what you want, uh, especially in that Cincinnati offense that likes to play up tempo. He's scary right there, right? They bring in transfers in from Wisconsin, Tyree Walker for a 10 touchdown year. Jeff Caldwell, he's 6'5". He comes in. Yes, he's an FCS talent, but you're tossing up to a 6'5" guy. They're expected to come down with it, right? Now, my cause for concern for Cincy is they lost 3 NFL players on the offensive line, and it's hard when you lose NFL caliber talent, especially on your offensive line. They do bring in experienced transfers though, but that offensive line, in my opinion, it's a little bit question mark. Look, you got Dante Colorone on the defensive side of the ball. Him alone is going to hold it down. He's an All-American, best in the Big 12, probably one of the best defensive lines players in the whole college football, honestly. They bring in some other starters up front. Their linebackers are solid, but that secondary lost NFL talent, and they're going to have to rely on some transfers. And like I said previously, it's hard when you lose NFL talent, right? That kind of caliber is always tough to replace, and we'll see what here. But I'm thinking with Nebraska's improved passing attack, Cincinnati's defense is going to keep them in it. I'm seeing some value here in Cincy plus 3.5 for the first half. I feel like it's gonna be a close game. I'm seeing 14-13, maybe 14-10 ruins that cover, but I'm more leaning towards a 14-13 kind of halftime score. With Nebraska pulling away 30-23 to finish this game, covering the 6.5, and also going over that 52.5 total. So, I mean, we'll see what happens here. Let me know how you guys are leaning. Let me know your guys' picks down in the comments. And like this video if it helped you out at all. All right, later.